Into the Nexus is a production of Amove.tv. Bookmark Amove TV for other great video games and esports podcasts. Into the Nexus is sponsored by listeners like you via patreon.com/ITN. Welcome back, everyone, to Into the Nexus, the podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. I'm Garrett Weinzierl. I'm joined, as always, by Kyle Fergusson, and I am joined again for our monthly visit by none other than DunkTrain. Welcome back, dude.
Hello, hello. Good to be back.
Good to have you back. I also, I love this. If you're watching live, you just watch us, screw around for, 7 minutes, just talking nonsense, and then we just pretend like that didn't happen, and we're very professional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The most professionalist.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. This feels good and weird. This is the first straight-up podcast I've sat down to do all week because I was in Utah for Nerdtacular over the weekend. I left on Wednesday, and then we got back. We worked for one day. Then we had the 4th of July, and this is just bizarre. So it feels really good to be sitting down with the two of you to talk Heroes of the Storm. And I'm glad you're here, Dunk, because traveling equals not playing. So I'm glad someone's here who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, I got you covered, man. I played a whole lot of Stukov on Monday when the PTR came up. So I'm ready. Nice. Well,
we'll be talking a lot about him right at the top of news. But besides Stukov, how's Heroes treating you? How's your week going?
I'm doing this really weird thing right now where I've got almost exactly 50% win rate, and my wins losses in Hero League right now is I think within one of each other after 300 plus games. It's on one hand it's amusing, but it's also kind of feels bad, man, because 50% win rate.
I'm glad to hear that because I'm struggling specifically this week. I know if you're a listener out there, you probably heard me mention the last couple of episodes that I've just been in Slackland and Heroes. I've been having a very good time, enjoying the game probably more than I ever have, but at the same time feeling the least competitive. I just feel like I haven't done my homework basically, and before I knew it, I was traveling and back, and I still hadn't even started my placements. So this week, I've finally gotten in, started my placements, and they are going so poorly. At least they started. They started so bad. And Kyle, you and I even sat down on the last episode, and we thought this out. We sat down and was all right, Garrett, you've been slacking. Let's look at the list of battlegrounds and rotation, and let's figure out your roster, what you're going to want to pick, what you're going to want to ban, what you're going to want to stay away from, all that kind of stuff. And when I say bad, I mean I opened up with going 0-4. 0-4, guys. I'm seeing gold players right now, and I am not feeling good. So I tilted hard today, bad. I was just sitting here oh God, Dunk's gonna come on and make fun of me. Kyle's the nicest man alive, and he's gonna make fun of me. Not that you're not nice either, Dunk. You're a very nice guy. Insert foot in mouth. But yeah, it was just awful. And then I walked away, had lunch with my wife, came back, and I'm oh my God, I have to even have a hope of getting back into plat, I'm going to have to go 6 straight. I won 4 in a row. I didn't finish, ran out of time, had to prep the show, but I'm 4-4 now. So
nice.
Well, so even though you're a lot better than me in a much higher place than I am, I'm glad to hear that I'm not the only one having 50-50 issues, even though mine is 8 games and yours is 300. So
yeah,
pretty
much
like you do. Yeah, it's it's been interesting getting back into it after just basically having fun in the sandbox after the 2.0 launch. So, but Kyle, you've been politely quiet. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Last week I got to play alongside some masters and grandmasters, particularly Twammy and Nitty from the Amove group, and that taught me a lot. It taught me how to be super crazy aggressive again, which is something I haven't had to do since going into Masters previously. And it's really hard. And actually earlier I was catching DunkTrain stream here, and he was playing Diablo. And that really kind of encapsulated what I feel like. I feel like with the Arthas kind of moving into the meta there for a bit, the strategy with Malthael as well became to just sort of plant your face into the enemy team and hope that everybody else knows what they're doing. So I'm having difficulty getting back into tanking because I feel very passive. I don't trust my team. I want to be more aggressive. I want to be like, good, that kill's awesome. Let's do the next one. I want to know exactly who I should cocoon on a new Barak, but cocoon became a thing about a month ago again. Before that, everyone was like, why aren't you doing the sustain heals? You're solo tank a new Barak. You're going to die out there. So how do you deduce, DunkTrain, how you're going to tank for a team when in the past, and in fact for several years, it almost felt like tanks were very reactionary and I was very focused on peeling for my team. Now it seems to be very much about engages.
I feel like Hero League didn't catch up on the concept of like how tanks have to engage with competitive for like so long, and it's really Cocoon, I think, that forced even like Master and Plus Hero League players to understand that like sometimes you want to dive and fight as fast as possible. Before that, people kind of just like did whatever they want, really. And I feel like the noob has really taught people like, okay, this comp, we want to blow someone up. Like, that's how we have to win team fights. And it's always been true that like certain comps have been about that. But the Cocoon thing really brought it into the focus. So the first thing I evaluate if I'm playing a tank is whether I want a fast fight or a slow fight. Like, do I have a team where I want to dive on a target and hopefully everyone follows up and we get the kill and that's how we win team fights? Or do I have the team where we want to stay as a death ball, protect your flanks, don't let anyone get picked off, that sort of style of team fight? I think it's like two really different things. And usually it's not always concrete like, oh, X hero, you always want a fast fight. It's like relative to the opponent. Do you want to be the diver or the defender? You know?
Yeah, and I think that's gotten even more confusing because Anubarak is an early pick, and then we don't make a dive comp out of it like we may have in the past when he was weaker. So when it comes to Diablo, is it a little more chaotic? It's more about just keeping that 25 armor going as long as possible? I
think Diablo really benefits from the most chaotic team fights available because he just has so much like dislocation, I guess is probably the right word for it, with the QE combo. You don't really want to Diablo Q charge into 5 people. You want them to be like spread out and your team to be spread out, and then all of a sudden the team fight is, oh, focus this guy because Diablo slammed him into us or whatever, you know?
Yeah, it's a good telegraph, lets the whole team know what you're going to do. But I've moved off of Diablo when he lost the old Devil's Due of the 60 souls, where I felt like I could really factor in if I wanted to die, if this was going to be a reset. Now I'm just like, please never die. I want my protection on my spells at level 7. And it's just hard. I'm also seeing, and you know, maybe as an authority we can work through some of these issues here. I'm seeing a lot of parroting of HGC casters, and that's not a bad thing. It's really great that people are, so passionate about our HGC casters. They do a fantastic job. But when you get into Hero League and people say something as insanely concrete as always take the Dragon Knight into the bottom lane, it's kind of hard to work out why that became a thing as of last week. So here's one I'd like to present to you. Okay. This week I had a guy, first pick Uther, and the whole team's yelling, first pick Uther, it ruins everything they could do. But we don't know their comp. We don't know. It's Cursed Hollow, so maybe stuns are favored there. Why would first pick Uther ruin everything?
I think the reason first pick Uther is really good right now in Hero League is, okay, I'm assuming Malthael was banned. I'm just assuming Malthael's banned because he probably should be banned in every Hero League game.
I picked him up in a game today, and that was my first win, and it started me on my tidal wave of, oh, thank God, man. It's turning around.
Malthael is pretty bonkers in Hero League because nobody can focus fire. It's like the Illidan problem, but like ramped up 10x because you don't have to be as good at Malthael as you do at Illidan to have the same value cleaning up. But that's a tangent. Back to Uther. I think first pick Uther is really good because if you look at what else is strong in the meta right now, there's like a lot of Anubarak and Stitches that are going on, and Uther is probably the best healer at saving someone from a Stitches hook if you go D-shield, and he completely shuts down Anubarak's kill pressure compared to any other healer. Like if you get Mouth out of a cocoon with your DPS at 10% HP, that DPS is dead. It doesn't matter. If you get an Uther out of cocoon at the very last second, he de-shields them and turns the whole fight around. Like Uther's just so good at like the fast fight style that everyone's trying to play right now. And most of the time the enemy team will not react properly and draft like a complete poke comp or a complete no stun comp. Like they just won't do that. So like Uther gives you a huge leg up.
That's cool. I'm glad that is actually a thing, and the way you described it makes perfect sense as a reaction to this more someone's out of position, go, a new Barak play we suddenly have.
Yeah.
What would you say to the confusion people seem to be having right now about burst and sustain? I'm hearing this a lot, particularly when it comes to like Zul'jin. Some people say he's burst. He always was burst. It's the state he wants to be in. At low health, you're doing high damage and going as fast as you can. But then he gets drafted as sustain. I'm seeing this confusion. Like people will say, oh, Vala's burst because you're going to go hungering, but Monster Hunter, and you're going to do the reset on your bolt. Mm-hmm. Is that burst now? And then people go, well, no. Well, Gul'dan is sustained now. And so should we just be thinking in terms of auto attacks and spell damage again?
I don't know. The whole like burst versus sustain thing is so kind of nebulous. Like a lot of times you're right, Vala will be the sustain, but then she goes Q-build and like for one moment in a team fight she is burst. Like Zul'jin, I don't know, man. I think you really have to think about your damage style outside of just burst versus sustain. I don't really think that's completely accurate. It's more like who can consistently do safe damage is like one aspect I look at, and that can be sustain, but it like that description encompasses more than just sustain, right? Because in theory, every DPS hero is basically a sustain hero if they just keep doing their things. Like, so it's about the timing window and how safe you are hitting them. Like melee assassins, they might be pure sustain. Like an Artanis is in theory a sustain damage dealer. He doesn't have any burst, right? But you don't pick him as a sustain damage dealer. He's like a brawler, so you understand that during the poke phase of the fight, he's not going to get any value. And I feel like you probably have to look at the game in terms of how safe your damage is and how consistent it is compared to like every hero is going to have burst windows.
That's true. And apologies to Garrett for just running off with a mini strategy section here.
No, totally. This is all very fascinating and also making me envious because I felt like my teammates at the end of last season understood at least a good core of this. And then now in my placement games, again, late to the game, guys, I know, save your emails. None of this. I'm getting Tassadar. When I pick Tassadar, people are yelling at me. Everyone's picking Stitches, and they're all awful. They should not be playing Stitches. I had one good Stitches. Azmodan, for some reason. Not on Hanamura, by the way. I've played Hanamura twice. Not Azmodan there. Azmodan in every other game. and whatever team had the Azmodan lost those games. And I was usually on that team, sadly. 3 of those 4 losses were Azmo games. I'm just like, why? Why are you taking Azmodan? And they were always the angriest players, too.
Okay, well, that makes sense, right? Because then they're working with the largest amount of information, and if they're also in gold or platinum range, they have those skill sets. So their information has surpassed their ability to execute. They know Azmodan's amazing from HGC, and they're just going with the flow. They're angry when things don't look like HGC then.
Yeah, that's kind of pretty much what I'm saying. So I think I'm seeing again. I think I'm seeing a knee-jerk reaction to esports, but obviously at a different level.
So what can we do? Like, what would be the ideal situation? Let's do the Tassadar first. Garrett shows Tassadar. Is there some sort of phrasing or word play that we could use to make people okay with that? I'm going auto attacks, guys. It's okay. I'm basically a Tychus. What's the? How do you get people into that?
I feel like, and then feel free to answer, Dunk. I feel like if I have to start my defense by explaining that Tassadar is not a support, that it is just wasted breath and it's going to take too long. We don't have enough time during this draft phase for me to teach you that this hero is not what you think it is because you can't go 1 inch further in your knowledge of this game than to understand that he is not the one icon they decided to put above his head.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of experience trying to teach people in Silver from like a position of being an equal, you know? Like usually if someone asks me something, it's because they think I already know the answer and they're going to be willing and receptive to what I have to say. Like even if I talk in draft in like Hero League, so I don't really have experience with like getting flamed for picking a hero where it's good.
That's
All right,
You know,
Dunk,
like
your homework
you
for the
get to hover. Like we talk about showing your pick, showing what you're going to play. But it's like a magic show. You're just wearing the hat on stage. Everyone's just like, ooh, what's going to happen next?
So your homework for the next Into the Nexus, Dunk, is I want you to make a Smurf, make sure it doesn't say DunkTrain anywhere or any allusion to your name, and see how people react to your picks.
yeah.
Research.
I'm kidding. I don't actually expect you to do that, but yeah. I don't know. It's just some personal things. And Raynor, I saw so much Raynor. I don't know where that's coming from.
No, that's happening in Grandmaster too, and I don't know why. Although I did have a game where I got like killed from 60% HP on Vala like 4 times in the same game to Raynor's Raiders. He literally just cast them on me, and I ran all the way across the map and died to them. And I was like, did they buff these?
So do you think Raynor's good again, or do you think we've all just forgotten how to play against him because we haven't seen him for like 3-4 months?
I think he's not that good.
Okay.
But I think he's like on the verge of playable. So when you play against him and you're uncomfortable about it, you're like, oh, I don't remember getting smashed for 1/3 of my health with auto Q auto.
Yeah, because he was a character I played a lot of about a year ago. Played a ton of Raynor, but yeah, all of a sudden I'm seeing him, and that was part of the till, was losing to a Raynor on a Raynor comp on Battlefield of Eternity. That was where I started to enter the darkest universe.
Yeah.
I am curious about the Azmodan, though. What if we see that coming, and it's going to be there because everyone's seeing the win rates and that? Is there something we should do for the team that makes Azmodan better?
Okay. I kind of consider Azmodan almost like a different version of Abathur. Like, you think about those team fights on Cursed Hollow where there's a tribute up and you kind of want to slow roll the tribute fight. You don't want to hard engage. You want to get value from your Abathur soak. I consider Azmodan similar to that, but with general pressure rather than split soak, if that makes sense. He brings a lot to the poke, but he really doesn't turn into a real hero until 10, I would say, with Blackpool, assuming he went Sieging Wrath build, which is the standard. So I would say to build a strong defensive composition that doesn't lose the poke war and is at least somewhat resilient to hard engage, if possible. Like, don't pick a team comp that wants to dive really hard and have a random Azmodan. Like, you're not going to have the coordination to dive and get a bomb at the same time. It's just not going to happen. Play like a standard safe poke comp and use that to beat your opponents with Azmodan and just get value slowly.
Would you rather that sort of 4-man be double support, double tank, or just kind of World of Warcraft style, 1 tank, 1 support from there?
Oof. With an Azmodan, you're probably going to want, if not double tank, then like a tank and a melee bruiser that can hold a flank. You're probably just going to need that. Like, otherwise you're just too vulnerable to getting zerged.
That makes sense.
And then if you have those two and an Azmodan, you don't really have room for double healer. So you're probably on the single healer, 1 range plan.
It's funny because Lost Vikings makes everything more aggressive. Same with the Abathur. If he's going clone, we kind of go, you put a gray main, now he has a clone target, and we're good. But yeah, the Azmodan definitely is just throwing him for a look. Plus, he has body, so a lot of the times I know in my head I'm saying, get in there and tank a little bit, Azmodan. But he's Azmodan after all and doesn't have any escape.
Yeah. It is tough. Like, people don't use Azmodan body very effectively. Like, they don't use the health pool. I think that's something that even in Grandmaster, like, the Azmodan players don't really use the health pool effectively for team fighting to like soak damage from squishies and stuff.
How much do you think of that again as a lack of trust in your teammate though? Because he doesn't have that escape. Do you think of it as just like, well, if this goes south, I'm just 1 more kill on the board?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a lot of that too. Like, in competitive, you see a lot more of like people identifying, okay, I need to tank this skill shot for my ally, or, you know, I need to put myself between the threat and the healer because he's more important than me right now, that sort of thing. You don't really see that in Hero League.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason I started off so poorly too, is I've been playing with Kyle too much. I've been actually trusting at least 1 member of my team quite a bit.
How dare you? No, but the more organized play you play, the worse you're going to be at Hero League, and that's always been the case. Or not maybe worse, but frustrated, certainly.
Yeah. No, I got this is the most tilted I've been in Heroes in probably half a year. So It's I just care. Actually, I just don't want to get made fun of is what it boils down to. I really just don't want to get made fun of. But anyways, cool. Well, that was an awesome little mini strategy segment. Let's move into this week's news and talk some Stukov.
We're on, boys! Ha-ha! Let's liven up this place!
Put me to the stage.
Stay a while and listen.
So much has happened since I left for Nerdtacular. Kyle, you and I did like a 1 day early, a 1 day early, 2 day early episode. And then literally the next damn day, we got like a hot fix with a bunch of changes. 2 days later, a hero I know you and I have hoped for a very long time as big StarCraft and StarCraft 2 fans. Announced frickin' Stukov. I remember I was at Nerdtacular. It was the first day. It was Friday of the main event. I had just done a panel, and I'm like hanging out, trying to get a water in the hallway, and into the next listener was just, Garrett, Stukov's a support. Just down the hallway. It was amazing. I wish real life was like this, damn it. I wish every day took place at a convention where people just randomly screamed Blizzard announcements like down the hall. It's like the girl you like at high school said yes to your weird note you sent her to ask her to homecoming. Like, I love that. I love it.
That'd be great. You're getting coffee at the workplace and you're just like, hey, Bob, here's Stukov as support. I thought he was going to be a specialist. Pretty crazy, right?
Yes. See. Why can't we all live in that world? Why do so many people want to talk sports? So, anyways, yeah, so Stukov's been announced. He is indeed a support. And I was very ready to come to this show and declare him broken. And it turns out he actually is, and it's going to be fixed. This is actually just straight up an issue with his bio kill switch. But taking that into account around the table, I'll start with Kyle because we've been making DunkTrain work extra hard just on the opening banter of the show. Kyle, what do you think of Stukov so far?
I think he's good. I mean, currently it's really hard to get perspective on him because his bio kill switch heal is healing for 50% more at all times, regardless if you complete the level 4 quest. This makes it look like as though he is raining down on people every 16 seconds a level 20 Rhaegar heal with a splash and all. It's really intimidating. I think he's an extremely busy character. You're got a lot of interactions with your weighted pustule, which is your offensive ability, which is kind of interesting. That's really where they've kind of added in the ability for you to augment him in other ways. And then Lurking Arm, that creates a zone of silence, is possibly the most oppressive thing I have ever experienced in this game. And I've walked home in those Banshees. I've walked home with a Tracer spinning circles around me and tried to make it through that gate. But even putting your Kael'thas cape into this thing can just ruin everything about your engagement.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I want to make a quick point that again, keep in mind, set the stage for you. I'm at a convention where internet connection is less than wonderful because there's too many damn people on their phone. So I watched the video once, just like a quick one through, and I thought Lurking Arm was one of his heroics. So when I got home and I got onto the PTR and I tried him, I'm like, wait, this is a basic ability? I couldn't believe it. I could not believe that Lurking Arm was a basic ability and that you can spec into it to make it grow in size. So
at one.
Lurking Arm, yeah, it's really good zone control.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's solid. It's solid. So, Dunk, what do you think of Stukov? Obviously, you played a lot of them.
Yeah, I played maybe close to 10 games on PTR of him. I think he's a really cool design because I really like the minigame aspect of managing the heal timers and the dot timers with the detonate. I feel like that's like a really fun aspect of the hero. I wish I knew how powerful he was. Like, I just have no clue if he's actually broken because of the bug. So that's like the most frustrating thing for me, is because I got on PTR and I wanted to feel like, okay, is this hero broken? Like, do I need to be spamming this day one in Hero League? And then the bug is just like, oh gosh, I have no clue if this hero is actually good. Just because, I don't know, but I think he's going to be really strong. The thing is, I think his shove arm, like his like go the hell away arm, is going to be kind of hard to use like Gust is. Like, people are going to use it wrong all the time, and Stukovs are going to try to flank and like get killed for no reason trying to use it all the time. And if you use it right, it's insanely powerful. So I really like Stukov.
We haven't actually even specified what the bug is. So if you are playing Stukov on the PTR and you activate his trade bio kill switch, it is currently healing for 50% more out the gate, as though the level 4 quest has been completed. Just baseline. That is not how it is supposed to work. So to the best of your ability, though it's not that helpful, just try and think of Stukov as if he's doing, I guess, 50% less healing than he currently is.
Well, it's like the Lucio passive healing, right, was nerfed by 33%, and it took Lucio from a real hero to not a hero, right? This is the same amount of nerf, basically, this bug being fixed. It's going to be a 33% reduction in his healing on his trait, so it's a hugely impactful nerf that this bug fix will have to be.
Yeah, I mean, although that being said, don't you feel that it kind of needs to be?
Oh,
because
absolutely. Absolutely, he's insane on PTR.
Yeah, if your pathogen is on... Right now, if you have a pathogen on a target and hit D, it's basically an Uther heal. And it's a heal that can spread to multiple heroes as long as they're standing remotely close to each other. So having AoE Uther heals is not okay.
Yeah.
As much as I was excited to get in here and just always pick him, but...
Where did you guys land on the heroics? Because I am confused, and 20 makes me even more confused. Are these lackluster 20 talents? Is Flailing Swipe just a directional Brightwing ability? Massive Shove is for the armor? Like, how do you decide between these two?
My impression was Massive Shove is the only choice. I think Flailing Swipe is too interruptible. And it takes too long to do anything effective, and it's not as backbreaking as Emerald Wind, even when it is successful, because like the day's knockback isn't continuous, and it's like not as oppressive for the team fight as like a good Emerald Wind, and the shove is like on a 20-second cooldown, which is pretty bonkers.
Yeah, I was gonna say the cooldown on shove just makes it too damn appealing. I mean, worst case scenario, it's like cool, I get Ariel's whip, only I don't need to worry about how far away I am from a wall.
It's funny, too, because it's almost like it's too fast, whereas Brightwings is this slow push that leaves you silenced for basically that entire go.
Yeah, it is. Plus, like, think of how many times you're getting ganked or, like, in a skirmish, like 2v2 or 3v3, and you can just reduce the enemy's power in that skirmish by half or 33%, like instantly. Yeah, this shove is probably not broken in 5v5s because people can interrupt it and stuff, but anytime you're 2v2 or 3v3, like, you're just going to destroy skirmishes with that thing.
I think my favorite surprise about him was the auto attack, and that thing is huge.
Yeah, it's really fun. Like, not enough heroes have that Leoric-esque, it really matters if I land an auto here. Like, the difference between weaving an extra auto into your combo on, like, Leoric or Stukov is, like, the difference from most heroes, like, Q button, nuke. Like, it's insane.
So you were concerned about Massive Shove as this trap that players are going to fall into of getting the shoves killed because they want to get a sick Massive Shove play. Do you think the auto attack is too much? Like, that's bait? Like, you're going to walk up to so many scenarios that you shouldn't be in.
Yeah, I think there will be a lot of people, like... Okay, there was one time I was playing PTR, and I was Stukov, and I literally chased an Illidan for, like, probably 20 seconds, and then into his towers, because it's like, if I get one more autumn on him, he dies. And then I fed, so I suspect that will happen to a lot of people.
So if you're listening very closely, everyone, Dunk is giving you all of the warnings of things you should not do week 1 of Stukov. He's figured it out for you.
Although I like the level 1 range attack talent too. Like, I think if you're not that comfortable playing melee support, no mobility, like, the range talent is a nice option to have at level 1. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, there's some cool ones in here. I mean, it reduces the auto attack damage by 50%, but you get a 20% slow for 1 second and become ranged and decent enough range. Not, Raynor, not Vala, but all right. There's some really, like, this one really stacks well with something like Universal Carrier, which is just, again, another nice little kind of training wheels talent that lets your healing pathogen continually spread. The healing is reduced by 60%, so in the end, either you manage your bio kill switch amazingly and still go for the big heals, or you probably won't put out enough healing. But it's still really cool to have these talents on such a complex hero.
Yeah, I really like his talent tree. There are some talents that I felt like were not great or really hard. Like, I think his level 20 alt changes are like not amazing, but then I was looking at one of the talents, and there's like a talent to detonate 10 weighted pustules without dying. I feel like that talent is so hard.
Yeah.
I probably picked that talent in like 3 games and only accomplished it once, because like you're trying to micromanage getting your heals to pop at the right time, and you're gonna get baited into like using bio kill switch on like 1 weighted pustule just for the quest progress. So maybe stay away from that one while you're new to Stukov.
It's the World of Warcraft problem. As healers, it's pretty casual. You just watch the bars, hang out in the area where the poop isn't. There's no chance of 5 real people busting in there and killing you while you're trying to raid that boss.
Yep. That comes up a lot with the quest, though, right? Just playing a way you probably shouldn't be playing, usually inefficiently, just to complete the quest.
What do you think of eye infection at 16? It's interesting that they took the blind away from Lucio and now put a 3-second blind onto Stukov.
I don't think eye infection is very good. I'm willing to believe that I'm wrong about that, but my first impression on reading that was like, ooh, 50% bonus damage. That's a lot of damage, right? And then I saw the numbers, and I'm like, okay, the damage bonus is trivial, and I don't really feel like the blind on that tier can possibly compete with his healing buffs. Like, I look at how powerful the other talents on that tier are, like Universal Carrier or Pox Populi, and like that seems like those 2 talents are insanely valuable, whereas Eye Infection is like, okay, I have to hit a sick weighted pustule on a target who's an auto attack target who's on one of my carries and pop it, and like maybe it gets value. I don't know.
No, that makes sense. Hit the skill shot. Use your 16-second cooldown, which may have not activated the heals to save the team in the first place. Why not do the easy thing and just heal everybody from the damage?
Yeah, exactly. Also, I think that's probably going to be a trap talent most of the time.
And it's 16. I mean, if you're taking Stukov thinking, oh, I can spec into blind against these AA, well, not until 16.
Yeah, I think you're probably better off just always taking one of the heal buffs. Like, I can't imagine a situation where I need that blind so bad that I would take it over the other options on that tier.
What do you feel about the juggle of the trait just in general? I know, again, right now we're talking under this umbrella of the heal is broken, but once that's fixed, like to me, it was instant anxiety. It's like, well, do I use this for a damage buff or a healing buff, or like how much am I trying to juggle both my weighted pustule and my healing pathogen? He almost felt like I should be playing him like some weird combo hero where I should have these abilities on cooldown before I even think about using that trait.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I thought it was an interesting playstyle. I think number 1 priority is going to be detonating healing pathogens on the important targets in a timely manner. And then after that, I think you consider weighted pustule detonations like just free value. Like, you shouldn't really be like, oh, sweet, I got weighted pustule on one guy, like, I'm going to detonate my trait, like, with no heals up or whatever. It's just, like, hugely inefficient. So I think you just kind of, as you're learning the hero, focus on getting the heals down, kind of ignore detonations on your damage spell, and then as you get better, you can maybe weave both in there.
Okay.
And once you start, like, learning to use the talents that require you to detonate the damage attack, that sort of stuff.
I keep the same way to think
I keep
about
trying to say the name of weighted pustule, and it's like, dude, it sounds so awful. I don't even want to say it out loud. Like, it just sounds terrible.
The idea of a pustule that has heft to it.
Yeah.
It is cute, though. Like, if you miss or even if you hit, it pierces through and then burrows on the ground on the other side. It's alive. It'll come back.
Well, I mean, this is a StarCraft team. There's a special sauce every time they make a StarCraft hero or battleground or skin that you can just tell the love and attention that is there. Because I'm so jazzed that it's Stukov, and I can't believe we have a Zerg healer. If you would have told me at the beginning of 2017, one of the healers this year will be a Zerg healer, not a StarCraft healer, a Zerg healer. I would have told you you were
so
a Boldface liar.
that Stukov was going to be a specialist. I was so nervous when Stukov was confirmed.
But it's been a while since another healer. It's about time.
Yeah, it really is.
I agree, and he has specialist. He feels like a specialist to me. That can heal. Kind of like it's like, hey, everyone in my draft, Dassar's not a healer. He's more of a damage dealer. Like I like that he has these specialist tendencies, but because of healing pathogen in his trait is first and foremost a support. So, anyways, moving on to other stuff on the PTR. There's other goodies as well. Hanamura's getting some changes. I believe the last time you were on, Dunk, was the last time we sat and really had a long talk about Hanamura. So as fate would have it, we're getting some changes. First up, the core life is increasing by 1. So we're going from 7 to 8. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. All right.
I'm fine with that. Yeah, I have no problem with that change.
All right. On top of that, Sapper minions, they're gone. They're not going to spawn for the enemy team after a keep is destroyed. So we're slowing things down here if you're oppressively winning.
Yeah, I don't see the sappers being relevant very often, so I don't know that this change does anything in my games. I don't know if you guys have a different experience, but I almost never see keeps go down on this map. And if they do, like, the game is so snowballed out of control, this change isn't helping you.
Right. The only time I've really experienced this is Team League, where the disparity is so high that the enemy team says, look at that. Let's crush them because of our scores. And they just disrespect us from the beginning. There's never any sort of like, is the Vala good? And that trial period in the lane.
Yeah. No, I agree. I've had in my last few Hanamura games, I was just happy to see a fort go down. But map objectives are changing. First payload spawn times being increased, and also the second payload spawn time, both by 15 seconds. So the time between them staying the same, but is getting pushed out by 15 seconds. They're also now going to grant 1,200 XP upon reaching their destination.
Yeah, I don't know how impactful that XP will be. It is a lot of XP. It's like it's a fort and 2 towers, I think. I don't think it's quite a fort in all 3 towers. But it's it's 400, 400, and then how much is the fort? I think it's almost 2 towers in a fort. Anyway, it's a good amount of XP, but I don't know if that's going to help the map at all. Like, I look at these changes and I don't know. Does adding XP to the cart really matter?
Yeah, that was. I mean, all of this kind of to me, like 15 seconds seems minuscule in the time increase. I don't think it's not like, oh man, the laning phase has really drastically changed for Hanamura. And the same, I don't think anyone's going to read this and be like, oh well, now I have to push the payload. The payload was already the objective. Like, although I yell at my teammates frequently that the real objective is getting a fort down before you even think about payloads, but yeah, it seems like a bizarre incentive to add.
Yeah. I'm not really sure.
It makes me wish that, like, I would like to see their data. I wonder, like, did they do this just because not enough forts were going down? That they just wanted to inject XP in another area?
Right. It almost feels like they have some sort of graph that says 15 seconds more and X hero reaches 16 and gets X talent that might have an impact.
Maybe. I mean, both carts having XP should help the team who's further behind keep up more frequently, because a lot of the times I see even the team that's behind will get their payloads in, whereas they won't get fort kills. So maybe having XP on the payloads will help the team who's behind stay closer to the team that's a little ahead and like up a fort or whatever.
They also mess with the mercenaries a bit. Support camp now a little easier to take, in fact. Recons no longer dismount heroes when they hit them with the dragon that reveals. And fortification camps now prioritize heroes if they're in range. The health has gone up on those, and they deal double damage to minions. So if there's no heroes in range, they'll actually get something done push-wise.
Yeah, and support camp, I mean, it's easier to take, but wasn't the healing tweaked? Or no?
I think the healing was nerfed a little bit.
Yeah, self-heal ability, no. Where was it?
That's only, yeah, it's what he would cast on himself. I haven't found any documentation of the buff itself changing.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I just misread this earlier. Yeah, it's just easier to take, which seems so bizarre.
Which is good, right? Because then we don't have to be as religious about the bribe strategy, perhaps.
Yeah.
This is all in a weird spot because I did get to test quite a bit of Hanamura on stream and got people together for customs. Ultimately, the 1-4 Sieger is still the exact way you should go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it probably didn't change anything fundamental, but it probably made the map a little bit better. I still don't think I'm going to be happy when I see Hanamura come up in my Hero League games. But maybe this will make it a little less oppressive if like the enemy ends up with 2 bribes and you have 0, you know?
Well, that's okay, Dunk. I mean, they're adding Garden of Terror back in, so you have something else to get angry at. I don't. Are you a hipster? Do you like Garden of Terror?
I don't violently hate Garden of Terror like a lot of the player base seems to. Like, as far as Garden of Terror goes, I'm pretty neutral on it. I would rather play most of the other 3-lane maps, but I still prefer Garden of Terror to a lot of the 2-lane maps. Although I do think Garden of Terror was better in older iterations than its current form. Like, I think the last changes they made to the Plant Terror were weird, but we can talk about that later.
All right. Fantastic. So those are the changes coming to Hanamura. We don't seem to have a consensus on how we feel about it. And then Zool on the PTR is getting a rather sizable rework. There's a lot to cover here. Not going point by point. But if like the TLDR for me is skeletons are changing a lot. Just in general, it seems to be they're trying to push skeletons down a damage to hero focused route, which I'm kind of picking up what they're laying down. Zool for me has always been, however, for me personally, a one-trick pony. I just like going skeleton builds and having fun pushing, so I'll send it around the table. Again, starting with Kyle. What do you think about this?
I'm excited for this because it increases his team fight ability. If you are like Garrett and just love making skeletons and pushing forever, you actually got a tiny bit of a nerf because the majority of your regeneration abilities or other interactions with skeletons function on them getting an auto attack out before you get whatever health or mana back to you. But, I mean, let's be serious here. Bone Prison now fixates, which causes all skeletons in the area to walk towards that target and start to hit them. The level 7 talent, or level 4 talent now, Jailers, which used to just spawn 2 skeletons, now, on completion of this quest, causes the skeletal warriors to fixate with 50% movement speed and attack speed. So it's this great sort of, well, I've been watching Attack on Titan, so Attack on Titan moment where someone goes, oh, and then everything just does random flips and starts booking it towards the thing you've got in a Bone Prison. It's really exciting. And every other talent ups your team fight ability. There's one that spawns, instead of just 1 scythe, 3 scythes on different delays, but really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Dunk, how are you feeling about this?
I'm not a huge Zool fan on live, but I think the PTR changes will make him really powerful. Like right now on live, I think everyone can agree Zool's like that. We're on Blackheart Spade, we need a dual soaker. Like a lot of people seem to think he's just the best hero in the game for doing that. I don't even think he's like that amazing there, but I think the changes on PTR will make Zool able to participate in team fights to a point where I think he will actually be good. And I am really looking at the W build with like the stacking attack speed. It's really insane if you fight in a minion wave or like near summons or anything. Like once you get 1 or 2 attacks off with the W attack speed talent, like your next attacks are so fast.
Yeah. Level 13 Rapid Harvest. Any enemy hit by Curse Strike increases attack speed up to 75% for 3 seconds, and that's just that attack speed. So you can imagine this lasts for 3 seconds after you're done when you're doing single hits. This is going while you have your increased Curse Strike area effect hits. And it's all enemies. You can like charge this up on Infernal Shrines and then go running at some guy with Executioner? No, that's same level. So that's not
same
happening.
Level, yeah.
Okay, good.
I didn't even think about this for Infernal Shrines. You just blew my mind, and I want Zool to become a pick on Infernal Shrines. That's a future I want.
I think it's really possible here. I mean, he'd still be vulnerable to Diablo, but all the melee bruisers who try to sit on shrines are. But yeah, I think Zul is really good.
That's
New Zul.
That's awesome. And also finally, Kyle, I know you play. Do you play Diablo?
I do play Diablo usually every season, for a little while.
How much do you think they timed this with the freaking Necromancer being released? Because I've been playing a summon Necromancer, and I'm just like, oh, that's what they're trying to do with skeletons here, and I like it.
It was probably intentional.
Okay, all right.
It was probably intentional.
Right,
I like it. It's good.
Sweet. I'm excited. And actually, I want to come one more thing, Dunk. I'm curious. You said Zul wasn't, one of your favorite heroes, even on the live game. Was it his lack of team fight potential? Was that what was keeping you away from it? So do you think?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure. That seemed like a good period to getting your thoughts on it.
I really just my personal playstyle preference and game style preference. I don't really like the heroes that are like a specialist where you have to get ahead early, and if you don't get ahead early or you don't keep the lead you had, if at any point you fumble, you suddenly you're way behind. Actually, those are the kind of heroes I don't like. I think of Sylvanas kind of like that. I think of Zul a lot like that. I think of Zagara a little bit like that, where if you don't get a lead early with them, you're actually disadvantaged in the team fight. But now I don't think that'll be true. I think Zul will just be pretty solid in a team fight. Maybe he's not like a Sonya. I don't think he's the boss bruiser that wins your team fights, right? If somebody doesn't get blown up, but I think he'll actually contribute really well.
Yeah, I'm happy about that. I love specialists, even though I didn't want Stukov to be one. I was surprised he wasn't, but yeah, I'm excited to take the new Zul out on live. So we haven't had a chance to talk about it yet, so let's kind of rapid fire style this. There was a hotfix on June 28th. Genji, kind of nerfed. Shuriken mastery, bonus damage down. They're trying to incentivize Dragon Claw being taken. Also, the dodge got a cooldown increase.
Good changes. Small overall impact.
Yeah. Malthael, are we all just filing this under, of course?
Yeah. Needs more.
Yeah, this one's really scary to me because throwing shade is the way that you use Malthael in a comp that wasn't for Malthael in the first place, and they made it better. So now you just pick Malthael all the time, right?
Yeah, I think you were always picking Malthael all the time before this, and now it's just that probably was fixing a disparity in their data, this talent is way underperforming or something,
Right. They saw more picks of other things and said, let's encourage the other things, but you still go, oh, well, what about the other, the trait, the base?
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I'd like to see the data because he's banned so often. I wonder if they're getting enough.
Yeah.
Thrall got a buff. I was surprised to see Thrall getting messed with.
I don't know. I think he got a bug fix that's really impactful where his level 13 talent isn't increasing it used to increase his trait healing by 50% all the time if you took that trait talent, and now it does not. So it's actually overall kind of a nerf to Thrall if you were taking that talent. But yeah, I think Thrall's pretty close to a good place. I still think he needs a little more buffs, to be completely honest.
It also feels like people aren't really committing to him. Back in the day, there was that Thrall guy in every game because you had to have a Thrall. And nowadays, it feels like I'll pick Thrall, but I'm more interested in Malthael or Genji. Maybe Thrall players are just rogue World of Warcraft players, and they just pick whatever class is best at the time.
I was about to say, I think you just answered your own question by invoking Thrall and Genji, or Malthael and Genji. I think we've just added sexier damage dealers to the mix. And I think a lot of Thrall players were those flavor of the week players. And that's not a dig at anyone. I didn't want to play Thrall, so I'm glad that you flavor of the week players are out there. And I don't really like playing Genji that much either. So take him. Go. I will fight you for that Malthael, though, if he somehow makes it through the ban phase.
I'm just happy to be done with the Rag must play. That was the most oppressive, just personally, to me.
Yeah.
I don't want to take my lava butt just walking into everything on Earth.
Yeah. Well, it's funny hearing you invoke Ragnaros now, because remember when he was added, we were liking him to Thrall quite a bit. Comparing him, and they kind of went out of fashion around the same time. And it's just heroes being added and balance changes is Heroes of the Storm in a nutshell. Brightwing pixie dust change. The movement speed duration has been reduced. It no longer grants block charges, but it does grant 30 spell armor for 3 seconds.
Yeah, this tweak is, I don't know. It's probably not a huge effective change. It's just slightly different, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Flavorful, certainly, as a pixie and all that sort of thing. But it does make me wonder, would you take Brightwing over another support because of this? Just like would you take Monk because there's auto attacks and you have a chance to do that ward?
I don't think so. I don't think you all of a sudden are like, ooh, I'm picking Brightwing here because they have mages or something. Like, it's still, you pick Brightwing for the global.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the backward thing, right? Like, they picked mages. They have, well, burst. We talked about that earlier, a little confused, but they're going to blow people really fast. Let's Brightwing heal that. Oh, wait a second.
Yeah. I think what this does do is make the Brightwing like double healer or Brightwing healer and a half like Brightwing Task. I think it makes those comps much better because mitigating damage is so valuable when you have another support also providing heals.
I like that.
Yeah. We also got some Tassadar tweaks, which is, I'm curious if that's why I got back from a trip and everyone's like, no, Tassadar.
Tass is still good.
Yes, he is. Thank you. Thank you,
Absolutely still good. Not even a question. I think he was oppressively broken previously, and after this change, I think he's just good. Solid.
Yeah. If you missed it, lifesteal amount was reduced a little bit. The level 1 Templars will also got the damage bonus of the first quest unlock reduced as well, to the surprise of no one. He's still putting out very solid sustain numbers. Uther, I actually remember seeing you a few weeks ago, Dunk, lamenting Uther's Guardian of Kings, or Blessing of Kings. I'm forgetting the name already.
Yeah, Guardian
of Kings. Yeah, you're kind of lamenting that talent and being like, this needs a nerf. So is this like Malthael? Is Uther just file under? Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% he needed this Guardian of Ancient Kings nerf. I was a little surprised to see Benediction nerfed, to be honest. Like, it's always been the go-to talent on that tier, but I thought Blizzard was just okay with it, like, because it's classic, I guess.
Yeah, that's the one that's the only thing here where I went, oh, come on.
Yeah, I know. It's like Benediction is so much fun, and no, it's slightly nerfed. I still think it's the go-to, but not quite as far ahead of the others.
It's still, I feel like they'd have to damn near double it to make you really. You need that cooldown reduction. I don't care if I have to wait a minute now for it again. I mean, I do care. Like I said, kind of made me raise an eyebrow, but whatever. Kyle, you're still using Uther, right? Like, this didn't sway you in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, in fact, I'd love to see some encouragement of, was it Tears Deliverance? The one that gives more healing if they receive healing after you touch them with the Holy Radiance. But we're not running double support comps with Uther anymore, so you're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head. You just go Benediction because you're on your own.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And Dahaka got a minor nerf as well. I don't see him going anywhere anytime soon either.
No, he's still here to stay.
But that's good,
or
right?
Go as fast as he pleases, all things considered. But yeah,
it's good though, right? Like, I mean, this is what we want. We want tweaks. We don't want a nerf to happen and just be like, well, that hero's dead. It's been axed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely commend the like more conservative tweak here, tweak there change they did through most of the heroes on this patch.
Yeah. All right. Fantastic. Well, before we move on to strategy, where today we'll be talking exclusively about Garden of Terror because it is coming back into the fold, let's thank our patrons over at patreon.com/ITN for supporting Kyle, myself, and our now monthly guest hosts, both DunkTrain and Jeff Kanata, over at patreon.com/ITN. Huge thanks to our producers, Declan H., Cheesy Bob, and Mythdoll. And also on this episode, thank you to Christian W., Levi M., I don't know, heir to the Levi's fortune. That's kind of cool. Michael D., Eric W., Joshua, no last name given, Jackson S., and Stephen H. Thank you all so much for supporting the show. It helps a lot, considering Kyle and I have quit normal jobs a while ago at this point. And I also want to remind all of our patrons out there, July is strange. We noticed at the beginning of this month there are a lot of declines. So if you're out there and you haven't checked your Patreon in a while, go and check your payment info, because I don't know if you go to Target and it gets hacked and they cancel your credit card, it means it stops working everywhere, including Patreon, which means it doesn't support ITN anymore, and it also doesn't support any other creators on Patreon that you may be supporting. So just every now and then, go in there, check it out, update it. We appreciate it. And if you're like, I'm done, that's totally fine too.
Totally excusable, right? I mean, it's July 1st. Like, do you not just bask in the glow of not having to move every July 1st? Just like peer out your apartment windows and go, look at all those suckers.
This sounds extremely personal. This sounds so personal. Do you always move in July?
Don't you? Like, you just
no, because I live in Florida and I would die. I would just die before I made it to
that's true. That's
one.
True.
You know, half of a couch into a U-Haul, I'd drop dead.
Well, in Chicago, you either have the most beautiful days in the world to move or the dead of winter. So you make a choice.
I feel like I could move in a parka easier than I could dying of heat stroke.
In Florida, the most you've ever put on is a pair of full jeans, so you're excused from the conversation.
Yeah.
That sounds so delightfully personal. I love it. I love it when you get weirdly personal, Kyle, in your anecdotes. All right, let's move on to strategy and wrap this show up.
Choose a talent.
Choose a talent.
Talent? That seems generous.
Yeah, no clue what that means.
So the one thing you may have noticed missing from our PTR rundown and news this week is the map rotation. The map rotation is, changing. Some battlegrounds are being added. We are losing Battlefield of Eternity, Blackheart's Bay, Brax's Holdout, and Sky Temple. I'm rather fond of most of those, so I'm actually kind of sad about that. And we're getting Towers of Doom, Warhead Junction, Haunted Mines added. But I want you to forget about all of that, because today we are focusing specifically on Garden of Terror, which is the final battleground being added back into the rotation. And we have not talked about this battleground in a very long time. If you are out there and you're relatively new to the show, possibly new to the Heroes community, you may have been listening to me talk a little smack about the battleground earlier and not realize that the majority of the community is not particularly fond of this battleground. But luckily, unbeknownst to me, DunkTrain is not on that train. Yeah. So not only, I was gonna lead in today and just assume we all hate it and just be like, we all hate it, but how do we win? But it doesn't matter. We don't all hate it. Dunk kind of digs it, and we still want to learn how to win. So what do we need? What do we need to relearn about Garden of Terror if we haven't been playing Quick Match?
Okay. Oh God, where do you start? I feel like this map has like so much strategy and using the Garden Terror effectively. So let's start by comparing it to Dragonshire, the other map where a player gets in a vehicle, the dragon versus the Garden Terror. They're very different. Very different.
Wait,
okay?
But you say compared to Dragonshire, which means if I listen to HGC, I just take it bottom blindly every time.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Preferably, you get the Dragon Knight and immediately run it even behind the wall, start taking all the towers, just so the dragon dies as fast as possible so you can get the next one sooner. I think that's the ideal strategy, according to my Hero League games. But in all seriousness, Dragon Knights have an interesting power curve where, they're solid at team fighting from the beginning, but not amazing, and they don't really get better, and they scale up to be devastating destructors, but still just pretty good in team fights, not backbreaking. Garden Terrors start out atrocious at team fighting and scale into literally two-shotting backlines with their auto attack. So when it gets to 20 minutes, you really need to shift your paradigm from, okay, Garden Terrors for sieging to bait them into fighting our Garden Terror and two-shot their Kael'thas at the start of the fight, and then we just win the game. Other than that, there's some balancing of the seeds you control. It's really important to split from the Garden Terror as opposed to pushing with it a lot of times. I don't know. It's just such a tough map, I feel like, to play optimally.
Let's rewind it back and sort of walk through it in orders. You'll always experience the beginning of the game, won't always go to late game. So let's start in the draft. What should we be looking for to get for our Garden Terror? In the past, like Tychus, those percent based to kill a terror. just based on that fact alone, am I drafting to lose by doing something like that?
I don't particularly think so. I mean, okay, so in the draft phase for Garden of Terror, everyone knows the meme, Vikings, PogChamp, get one Viking in the Terror, like you can still soak or whatever. I think that's actually a legitimate strategy if you're a Vikings player, but with the current state of Vikings, I wouldn't say it's worth learning Vikings just to do that. Outside of that, in draft phase, you're right, percent damage is good against the Terrors. I would say avoid those squishy immobile backliners like I was talking about. Kael'thas, Zul'jin, Raynor to a slightly lesser extent, Jaina. There's a lot of the backline heroes who, if you can't effectively kite a Garden Terror, or even at least run away from it effectively, you are a liability to your team. So in the draft phase, I would avoid those really squishy immobile backliners. Just because if you get caught in a Garden Terror polymorph, or if you get caught out in a lane against a Garden Terror, like you will die.
That's a really cool observation. Very enactable upon information.
Mm-hmm.
What about, so we talked about the Lost Vikings there, and one of the strategies in the past was to get a rider, someone who either has insane escape or does something cute with the Garden Terror itself. So, for instance, Butcher still can collect meat while inside the Garden Terror. If he rides all the terrors, he clears lanes, he gets meat. Some people might say, what an awesome Chromie map, because we can put Chromie up inside the Garden Terror, and now she's got more body to participate. Same thing I've heard with Novas, and Zeratul more so because they actually have the escape to get out of there once they've gone ham with the Terror.
Good drivers. Chromie makes me concerned to think about, but
it kind of goes against everything you just said, but don't get sniped by your enemy Garden Terror.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so the heroes I immediately think of as good Garden Terror drivers outside of Vikings, who are the obvious one, is like Zeratul can be really good, because a lot of times in a Zeratul composition, he kind of has this awkward place in the comp where like your burst comp and like, but your Zeratul doesn't really participate in the pressure phase of the fight, the poke phase, where you're trying to whittle people down to prep for the one shot, and like having him get in a suit of armor so he can brawl, and then when the suit of armor dies, suddenly we can look for one shots. I think that's really high value. Plus the night phase makes it hard to see shimmers on this map, and the split effect of trying to catch extra seeds lends itself well to Zeratul picking targets off. So I think Zeratul is really good on this map. Other stealthies probably get a slight boost, but obviously Nova Valyria aren't really on the same tier as Zeratul.
I like Zeratul now too, because of your point earlier of, hey, don't take squishies. If they do take squishies, it's an added way to punish them.
Yeah. Murky is a reasonable Garden Terror driver because he doesn't care if he dies out of it. Heroes with escapes are generally good. One thing you want to try to do with the Garden Terror is you kind of want to have a functional 4-man outside of the Garden Terror, because I mentioned splitting is so important. So in the draft phase, you want your Garden Terror driver to essentially be like the least important element to your team composition as a whole. You don't want like a solo tank where your tank gets in the Garden Terror because you have no one else who's safe after it dies, right? Because then, okay, I put my tank into the Garden Terror and like now we only have one frontliner. We can't brawl with another Garden Terror because it can just run at our squishies. It gets really awkward. So double tank is really effective on this map as well. You put your like secondary bruiser in the Garden Terror.
That's a good point to make, because when it comes to the Dragon Knight, it's often just whoever the heck is in range, get it. But here we can coordinate, heart someone back. We, of course, I love using the who rides, just getting it out there the second that thing's done. Mm-hmm. Let's figure out as a team while that timer is at maximum, who's going to actually go in that baby.
Yeah, that's really important too.
Well, hopefully you're thinking about it through the draft phase too. I mean, you're looking at it and being like, well, what happens if one of these 5 is just not in the team anymore?
Yeah.
And now
that's right. I forgot about the Cho'Gall interaction where Gull can keep firing from inside a vehicle. There's a lot of cute things you can do with the Terror.
Are we actually suggesting people take Cho'Gall?
No.
All right.
No, that'd be a bad choice in the first place, because, I mean, just in my mind, because I love Leoric so much on this map. I love draining these big vehicles, and if you're going Cho'Gall, I'm having a great day.
Yeah. Plus, Gall, like, then your Garden Terror is kind of taking 2 people out because your Gall doesn't get a runic bomb to detonate. Like, it's probably good. It's probably good in the hyper late game, like for a core rush, because Cho'Gall pops out, and then like you can probably 100 to 0 the core, but like I don't think Cho'Gall and Garden Terror is where you want to be.
So let's take this to the next step. We're in the game. First night comes up. Are we trying to soak? Is there a double soak to think about? Anything like that?
Okay. This will kind of depend on your compositions and how the early game has gone. Usually first night phase is on the border between level 3 and 4, similar to Infernal Shrines, where like if a team is a little bit ahead, they will be level 4, the other team won't, but they'll usually get it in time. You generally want to have a strong side of the map, and what that means is on top or bottom, you should either have like a 3-man roam squad or be pressuring a lane really fast to where you can rotate out first. And ideally, you snag one aggressive position camp, which means on your enemy's half of the map. On your strong top-bottom half, you grab the aggressive, and then you rotate back and grab your small camp that's safe. And your solo laner or your weak lane scouts on the other side of the map your safe seeds, and if it's safe, they take them.
Well, I haven't heard anything this religious since learning Sky Temple strategy. So go over that again. So your safe lane is going to be the lane where you, depending on your side of the map, have access to your mercenary camps.
Yeah, usually. Yeah, your Knight Siege combo will generally be where you're putting your stronger comp so that if you get pressure, you can back it up. So I imagine like a normal Garden of Terror team comp, I'll often have a solo laner who's like an Illidan or something that doesn't really turn on into a hero in the late game, and I'm going to get to the late game more easily by putting him in the Garden Terror early. And then I'm going to have a mid hero who's wave clearing, probably. And this will be like a, not really, I mean, basically a traditional solo. This is like a safe, either a range carry, like a Volo or something, or a, you know, if you have a mage on your team and you just want to wave clear this and kind of back up, it's relatively one of the more gankable solo lanes, so the mid is kind of scary. Then bot lane will generally be a pusher, like I'll have a Zagara or something a lot of the time if I'm unlucky in Hero League, or it'll just be where my 3-man is, and you'll clear the wave and then back off and either threaten the rotate to mid or whatever. So in this scenario, my strong side is the bot side of the map. My Illidan is not my strong side. I don't want to be playing up on this side of the map in the early game. His job is to not die to ganks. So I'm on the bottom side of the map. I'm abusing my lane bully. I'm abusing where I have my healer and tank combination with them. So I have a lot of pressure on this side. And right when the seeds are about to spawn, you shove the lane in, and then you can rotate aggressively, preferably with the help of your mid hero. So like on this map, if you have someone who can clear mid really fast and you clear bot really fast, for example, you can converge on their seeds that they think are safe on the bottom right side and get a kill because the brush is really conveniently located for engaging there. Or you can just pick up an extra set of small seeds to kind of get ahead. You shouldn't be too concerned about getting a terror on the first night, though, because the first night terrors aren't that great usually. They don't get that much value. Personally, I think it's probably better to sit at 99 seeds than get to 100. Like if your choice is get to 99 or get to 100, a lot of the times it's better to be at 99 because you won't get any value out of the first terror unless you're coordinated.
Yeah. Cool. You said one thing that was really interesting, just blazed through it. Pushing out the lane. I'm assuming that's so that we reach their wall, our minions don't die to our towers, so we don't miss out on soak. Is that correct, or is there some other kind of reason for that strategy?
You basically want to force a lose-lose decision on your opponent where either I stay in my lane and soak this wave that's now on my tower, but lose the skulls or lose the seeds, or I leave this lane, miss the soak, and even if I like kind of win the skirmish or force them off my seeds, I've now missed lane experience. So that's one of the reasons wave clear is so important at the highest level, is because if you out wave clear your opponent, if you have a significant advantage in that timing, like you can always put your opponent on the back foot trying to decide what they have to do.
Would you say, I'm in that scenario now that you have set up, would you say it's more dangerous to make the call of trying to go get seeds because of the gank ability in that scenario?
Yes, absolutely. You don't have vision. You have vision disadvantage because the creep wave provides vision further up the lane. Like the enemy can easily chase you or gank you from the brushes. So if you're in that situation where, oh, we don't have the best draft for Garden of Terror, we're weak early game, we didn't get control of the spacing right, just give up the seeds is way better than to walk into the darkness where you have no idea what's going on in that plant area and just feeding. And I really like high gank pressure comps too on this map. Like ETC is really good on this map because there's a lot of narrow choke points for big slide moshes, that sort of stuff. And also in the early phase, I feel like you can get a lot of picks.
That's really cool. So next stage, you get your first terror, whether or not you pulled it off by going, don't touch that seed, and getting a second terror, or you actually won the first phase.
Yeah.
What do you do with it? You're going to ride goal number 1.
Early game terrors, split push. Best case scenario is you get a merc camp right before someone picks up your terror. You can coordinate this much more easily than Dragonshire, by the way, because you pick it up in base. So best case scenario is I get a merc camp out. Well, I mean, best case is obviously I get all 3 merc camps out, they get 0. But realistically, you pull your night camp, pick up the garden terror. That's like standard advantage if I have a terror and they don't, is I get night camp and I get a garden terror. Garden terror goes opposite the night camp, and you 4-1 split with the garden terror solo pushing on the other side of the map, night camp pushing on the bottom side of the map. This is a little bit risky because the enemy team in theory can 5v4 engage, and it is your responsibility as the 4-man to essentially not feed while this happens. Like you really do have to play. You have to push, but you have to play safe, which is maybe too much to ask in Hero League. But like that's the optimal split because the Garden Terror, if not responded to by 2 people, will get a fort in like 40 seconds, even the first one.
So it's all about it's all about reading how they're reacting. If you count 3 and you're safely making the assumption that 2 are reporting to the terror, you're fine.
Yeah, basically. And then if they 5-man gank the Garden Terror, that's fine. He walks away. Maybe he lives, maybe he dies, but you probably get the fort on bot side anyway. The only real risk with this plan for first Garden Terror is risk number 1. When I'm pulling the night camp, it shows on the minimap that I'm pulling the night camp and it's still up after the others have despawned. So in theory, if the enemy has a very strong early game comp and they're positioned appropriately, they can aggressively invade before the Garden Terror can respawn. Or 2, your 4-man is overeager pushing on the opposite side of the map of the Garden Terror. They don't realize they're 4v5 and all 4 of them can die. And even then, that's not a good trade, but you'll probably still be even in the game, is the thing, if your Garden Terror is pushing unopposed because of that. What's much more common is for both teams to get a Garden Terror on the second night, where like the strategies get way more diverse.
Either way, that's really cool information, really builds on what we talked about in the past with using merc camps, not as some sort of merc lord pushing power, but as a different lane, and you guys go do something else, giving those mercs value and pulling attention. So now you've done that with 3 lanes, which is really cool to hear about.
Is there a way that you socially engineer this in your pickup games? Like I always love talking about, I don't know, Hero League etiquette. Like how do you communicate with your team? Do you just during the draft phase be like, hey guys, anytime we got a terror, take the prisoners first?
I think Garden of Terror actually gives you more time to plan than average. So, like, say you collect 100 seeds. You know you've got 100 seeds. You see it saying your terror spawning in your base. You have plenty of time. You can literally type, like, okay, guys, get night, push bot, I'll get the terror, right? Or, like, you can say, hey, X person, you should get in the terror. And even if they don't listen, as long as you say it, 30 or 45 seconds in advance, then even if they don't listen, you can go back and do it yourself if you have to, right? So I feel like the nature of Garden Terror actually lends itself a lot to more planning about that sort of stuff. Like the Garden Terror has to walk out of base, for example. And while it's walking out of base, if you're in the Garden Terror, you can be typing, telling your team, hey, I think you guys should split from me, or hey, be careful, they're not showing on map yet. Wait until I pressure the buildings, that sort of stuff.
And even if your writer isn't communicating, that travel, you can see from the mini map where they're going and how you should probably report accordingly. That's a good. I like that. Because you've given a lot of information here, so I guess it's like to the listener out there is like, well, don't panic because you have a lot of time to get to the terror.
Yeah, and it's better. Okay, even if the ideal situation is a 4-1 split with the Garden Terror, sometimes your team won't do that. Like you'll just be doing hectic things. Like it's better to go with the terror if you have to than have like a weird like 2 people split. Just group up if you have to. Garden Terror is still okay grouped up in a siege. It's still okay early game defensively in a fight. Like you can kite away with the polymorph. Try to get merc pressure if you can, but like don't panic. Probably the worst thing you can do on Garden of Terror is to like get a Garden Terror, like try to get way too much value all across the map. Everyone gets picked off. They turn around and get as much experience value as you did during your first night phase, but now you're out 100 seeds and they've got 80 in the bank just waiting for the second night phase or waiting for the third night phase. Like, you don't want to end up in a scenario where you have 0 seeds and they have like 99 ready to go on the next night.
All right.
You're riding the Terror. You run up to the wall. It's go time. Mm-hmm. Which lane? So we talked about which lane you're going to pick. You're going to coordinate with your teams. You've got 3 abilities. Where should I lay my potted plant to turn off buildings?
Okay. You have to identify if the plant is in danger. So if they're actually defending the lane you're in, you put the plant at max range from the wall and break that down slowly. And the way you do that is you potted plant max distance from the wall so it still disables them. You put the polymorph inside the gate, and then you walk up and safely auto the tower 2 or 3 times. I mean, depending on how much damage they have and stuff, of course. Maybe you get more autos, and then you pull back, wait for the next wave, do it again. Because you clear the waves in 2 autos with the Garden Terror because it has splash damage. So that's if they're not defending. If they are defending. If they're not defending at all, feel free to toss the plant immediately into the center and just wail on the wall, then go to the fort straight away. The cooldown will come up at the same time it expires if they're not defending at all. So you'll be able to just clear a fort in like 30 seconds or less.
And that is why you should report to the Terror when it's pushing.
Yes, you have to defensively. You have to respond to the Terror. So let's say you're on the team that didn't get the first Terror, and we're talking about that night phase where the enemy's like splitting up and they're planning to get mercs and get the Terror. The first thing you have to assess is, can I invade the knights right when the Terror is like available? And if so, push out your mid wave, do whatever you can, but get your team there so you can invade the knights and potentially get kills. If you can't do that, then what you should probably do is pull back into kind of like a general defensive posture, I would say, where you're kind of split on the map, like say you're 1-3-1, right? 1 in top lane and 1 in bot lane, 3 in mid lane, and then you just wait to watch where the Terror is going, and your 3 in mid respond wherever it goes. That's generally like the most efficient defense against a Garden Terror.
All solid.
Indeed. I hope everyone was taking notes during all of that. So great. So awesome. So you're excited then. Overall, like bringing this around to the end, the new battleground rotation. Thumbs up. Oh no! Oh, you don't like it. So of the 4 that were removed, which one are you saddest to see go?
I'm really sad to see Sky Temple removed. I love Sky Temple.
Thank you.
It's like one of my favorite maps. I think a lot of strategies are viable on it, but it's also kind of cheese resistant. There's a boss to fight over, which is fun. I think bosses add a lot to the game because they're like having the desperation boss out, or like we're losing the game, but we've focused our efforts into the boss lane so we have a chance to win, versus like we're the winning team. How do we keep them from having a shot at winning the game? I feel like having a boss on the map adds so much strategic element and gameplay to a map, and maps without bosses are something that I find frustrating.
Kyle, how about you? Is there one in there that you're pouring one out for?
I think right now Infernal Shrines is probably my favorite map, so I'm happy that's sticking around. Good to have Towers of Doom back. Still undecided on Warhead Junction. Great win rate in the past on Garden of Terror, so this looks healthy for me, but I'm just impressed and surprised at how fast these map rotations are being done. And coordinating them with the release of new heroes is frightening.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is a lot of change to deal with all at once. Not to mention that the balance changes are still happening at pretty much the same rate that we've been accustomed to. So you're absolutely right. I'm sitting here thinking that I'm the least excited about Haunted Mines.
I don't want to see
I'm over that Battleground. Just take it out again. Just get rid of it. I'm done. Goodbye.
Yeah.
And here's a good wrap-up question. Where do you think Stukov will have his highest win rate? Map-wise?
What map?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like, I might even go Braxis just because here, of course, it's removed now, so we're okay for Day 1 Hero League. But, I mean, that point control, Lurking Arm, I think that level 1 could be the go-to.
Yeah, I was gonna say one of the 1-4 split maps would probably be his best. So I think Braxis probably would be his best win rate. Like early game, I think in the 4v4, his healing output is going to be comparable with like the best 4v4 healers with like a medic or an Ariel or whatever. Like he's going to have really good AoE heals. So probably Braxis. Assuming the map's actually in the rotation, I don't see him doing particularly well on Towers of Doom. I don't think he'll excel in like the split part, and I don't think he has great places to get huge shoves. Can he shove vehicles? Did anyone pay attention to that? Because if you can just shove a Garden Terror away, like that's not okay.
The devs have said, much like Curse Bullet, it will not work on vehicles.
Okay, that's really good. I didn't pay attention to that when I was playing him on PTR.
That'd be horrible. 30 seconds, all the lanes are cleared out, no keeps, and you just go back to your core.
Yeah.
But it would also be, I don't know, that excited me. I'd like to see that personally, but I completely understand why not. Kyle, you mentioned the ARM as point control. Do we think that's what's going to happen on Braxis? Do we think if it does become a thing on Braxis, how quick until we start counterpicking against the Stukov that's just standing still with his butt out in the open?
It's so impossible for us to understand his mana efficiency with the current healing numbers. Because right now, we just throw him in that bottom lane, and he's going to be the Ariel, no real mana issues, as long as you're not just casting your Lurking Arm at every single moment. Everything's very mana efficient. I think he could go for a very long time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's still going to be able to. It's just his trait will be balanced as opposed to the way it currently is.
Right.
But yeah, I can see putting him in your 4-stack just being solid. I also would like to see him on Tomb, because there's, even in pickup games, there's a lot of rotation happening in Tomb. There's a lot. It seems to be many moments where you all come together kind of naturally, even when you're running around like cats trying to be herded. So I think I'd like to see a Stukov on Tomb with the Spider Queen as well.
Big lanes for pushing too.
Mm-hmm.
Pushing with the arm, not pushing as in getting XP.
Yes. Big lanes and a lot of walls in the center to get stunned up against if you're not worried about it. If you're going for it more as a stun and less of a get away from me.
Yeah, which you can do because it's a 20-second cooldown.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Oh, I wonder how long that will last. I guess we'll see. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. Dunk, thank you so much again for joining us. Perfect timing again. New hero, patch, battleground rotation. And something I didn't think we'd be doing anytime soon, which is a Garden Terror strategy segment. But when Kyle mentioned, I'm like, yeah, you know what? We haven't talked about the battleground in a very long time. It's probably worth revisiting. So thanks to everyone for tuning in. Thank you again to our badass patrons over at patreon.com/ITN for supporting this show. You can pick up Into the Nexus swag. We have t-shirts available at shirts.amove.tv. We have glassware for your beverages, whatever kind you prefer, at etched.amove.tv, custom etched glassware over there. You can catch us live Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on twitch.tv/AmoveTV. Feels so good to be back doing a normal show in the comfort of my office. Follow us on Twitter. We are at ITNcast. That is the place for the show. And thank you to Gorath from The Core Show for our intro music. I believe they were actually going at the same time as us today because Scott had a power outage last night. And thank you to BrianGriffithMusic.com for our outro music. DunkTrain, you are our guest host this week, so you can go first. Where can everyone find you when you're not going into the Nexus?
When I'm not into the Nexus, I'm probably in the Nexus anyway. You can catch me on twitch.tv/DunkTrain or Twitter @DunkTrain. Either way, to know when my streams go live or see what I'm up to.
Badass. Kyle, how about yourself?
I'll go ahead and advertise a little website that I am back on this week. Twitch.tv/Kyle Fergusson. Streams are going. There is partnership over there too now, so things are looking really, really exciting for the future. I'm really happy that everything got worked out there. Look forward to future streams, and this weekend, of course, is Team League Saturday. So follow me over on Twitter to see all those alerts, or follow me on Twitch.
Awesome. Folks, I'm on Twitter @GarrettArt. Every podcast I do, including this one, can be found at amove.tv. That is AMOVE.tv. And also, Amove TV is a channel in Heroes of the Storm. I constantly hear from people like, I don't have friends. I can't make friends. I don't know who to play with. I want to play with people. Join the Amove chat. Everyone in there is super nice. /join, spacebar, AMOVE TV. do it. Do it now. Go make yourself a friend. And if I have to promote a specific show this week, I'll promote my solo show, The Angry Nerd, because I finally broke Kyle down to come on it. And this weekend, at some point, I don't know when, we're going to record an episode, and we're going to talk about everything that happened with Twitch. So if you're sitting here wondering, why did they talk about that? It's because we have a guest on. We have Dunk. We have this huge patch. We have a new hero coming in. We're not going to sit here and talk about why you shouldn't wear swimsuits on Twitch TV. All right? That's why we're not doing it. There's other things to talk about. This is called Into the Nexus, not into the Twitch rules that some jerk somewhere reported somebody for possibly breaking, even though it doesn't specify. No, man. Whoever reported you, I will fight you. If I ever meet you, I'll fight you. Bring it on. What? Sorry, what was that?
It's touching, man. Thanks for going to bat for me.
It's not for you. I just hate people that report creators. But anyways, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Check that out, amove.tv. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And until next time, good luck and have fun.
Take care.
You need to figure out a sign-off for DunkTrain when he's on.
I used to say rolling out because I thought it was funny. And it's like a Transformers reference, but now those movies are bad, so I don't want to talk about them.